Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I now humbly invite His Excellency Mr. Azali Assoumani, President of the Union of the Comoros and Chairperson of the African Union, to deliver his acceptance statement. Your Excellency.
Majesté,
Your Majesties, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, heads of state and government, dear colleagues, Excellencies, Secretary Generals of the United Nations and the League of Arab States, Excellency Prime Minister of Palestine, Excellency Moussa Faki, Chairperson of the African Union Commission, ladies and gentlemen, ministers, ladies and gentlemen, ambassadors and heads of delegation, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. I would like on the outset to express, first of all, on your behalf and on behalf of all Africa, our heartfelt condolences and our profound compassion to the brotherly peoples of Turkey and Syria following the deadly earthquakes that hit their countries, causing hundreds of thousands of victims and major loss of property. I would like you and invite you, ladies and gentlemen, to join us to observe 1 minute of silence in memory of those who have disappeared. Thank you. Thank you. I would like then to express with great emotion my very sincere thanks and gratitude to members of the Bureau of the African Union who have honored my country, the Union of Comoros, by entrusting it for the first time of its history the destiny of our continental organization. I would like also to thank my dear colleagues, sisters and brothers from Eastern Africa for supporting my candidature to this noble function, and most particularly my dear brother, President William Ruto, who had the elegance of withdrawing the candidature of his country, Kenya, which allows today the historical accession of the Union of Comoros to this noble function. And I'm even more pleased with this honor that my country is an incarnation embodiment of an island, as an island country has late access to its independence, allowing the Union of Comoros to lead the African continent. Our organization has proved to the world its conviction that all countries have the same rights and enjoy the same freedoms. Thus, by succeeding within this house to my brother, President Macky Sall, in my capacity as President of the African Union, it is with the weight of continental responsibility on my shoulders that I intend to assume, as of today, the functions of President of the African Union on the occasion of this 36th ordinary session. But I will do my best to pursue his work by favoring, as he always did, dialogue, listening, gathering prerequisites in order to make of this mandate that of the success of our continent. Allow me then to express, on behalf of all the delegations here, our profound gratitude to the high authorities of Ethiopia, its people, and government for the warm welcome and hospitality which has always been extended to us in this beautiful city of Addis Ababa, this new flower whose perfume has always spread throughout the continent, spread the perfume of our common ambitions for our common motherland, Africa. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to seize this opportunity to salute the memory of the founding fathers of Africa, Nkrumah, Leopold Sedar Senghor, Sekou Touré, Buto Keta, Kenneth Kaunda, Sibaron Pio, and others. Certainly times have changed, but these models of ideology which embody the African ideal continue to inspire our thoughts, our actions, and the march forward. Within this spirit, I would like also to pay tribute to all those who have contributed in 1999 to the elaboration of the Sirte Declaration, which has laid the foundations for a modern African Union, which would be visible, eligible, and audible, which would have at its helm a moral authority embodied by a current president. It is this authority which President Macky Sall has borne with great insight during the last 12 months. Dear Macky, you have worked without respite for the defense of the interests of our continent in political, economic, and financial world governance. You have succeeded in creating consensus around the accession of the African Union to the rank of full-fledged member in the G20. Thank you, dear Macky, for this achievement which honors us and continues to honor the African continent in its entirety. Would like also to thank our dear brother, His Excellency Moussa Faki, Chairperson of the African Union Commission, and all his collaborators for the continuous work and their remarkable investment in favor of our organization. Honorable participants, the world and our countries in particular are going through a troubled period at several levels, while our countries have just come out of the most serious crisis, COVID-19. They are facing the consequences of this new crisis, that is the war between Russia and Ukraine. In 2022, growth has not gone beyond 3%, while birth rate in Africa are still very high, absorbing the efforts that are being made by countries in terms of social transfer and infrastructure. 22 countries in Africa, according to the World Bank, are in a situation of distress because of their debt, and they dedicate a great share of $1,000 billion to pay the debt of the continent. We do urge the setting up of a common framework for the settlement of this debt, which would be more inclusive and will integrate the multilateral, bilateral, and private creditors. And we do hail in this sense, in this vein, the important role which the General Director of the IMF has played, who has supported over the years African countries, particularly in terms of management, the restructuring of the debt, but also in terms of coordination between bilateral creditors through the initiative of suspension of the debt servicing and the common framework. We plead for a total cancelling of the African debt in order to allow an economic recovery after COVID-19 and allow us to face the negative impacts of the crisis in Ukraine. This multiform crisis generates also food insecurity, which is a source of concern because of its seriousness. It threatens of setting back our continent to scenarios of famine, of unequal, which has never been seen before. The insufficiency of our capital, human capital, education, health, but also access to water and electricity. Africa could see its gains be put into question for 20 years. There is necessity for concerted policies at the national, regional, and international level in order to create a virtuous movement which will allow us to get out of the rut. If the water has broken down in Europe, this is risking of ruining our continent. And in the face of this critical situation, and as we did during the health crisis of COVID-19, solidarity should always prevail. I would like then to invite our European partners to mobilize massively the partnership fund of 150 billion euros, which have been set up during the summit between the African Union and the European Union of February 2022 to support our continent. And I intend to express this legitimate demand to the President of the European Council, who has always displayed his attachment to the development of our continent. Ladies and gentlemen, dear participants, as part of the responsibilities, of my responsibilities, I'm intending on important questions which are being faced by our continent to set myself an essential mission which constitutes the theme of the year, namely the acceleration of the implementation of the AFCFTA. We do place collectively our hope on this AFCFTA, which our organization has launched in 2021, which could provide adequate solutions to our problems. Moreover, thanks to the impulse of the Summit of the African Union on economic diversification in Africa and the extraordinary summit on the AFCFTA, the 25 of May 2022, this AFCFTA is set up and has been ratified by 46 African countries, and urge my peers who have not done so to do so very rapidly. So it is up to each of our states to create the normative conditions so that this exceptional tool could serve as a lever to intra-African trade and to its development, because now there are only 17% of trade among African countries and only 4% of the contribution of Africa in the world trade. So the AFCFTA, without these conditions, Africa will join a list of missed opportunities. We cannot allow this, because our peoples and our enterprises are waiting with a lot of patience the implementation of Agenda 2063. Honorable participants, we should, as you have entrusted me, that accelerate the implementation of the CFTA. But I think that there are three elements that we should focus on in order to achieve this mission: peace and security, the climate change problem, and also African self-sufficiency. We must grant a great importance to peace and security, and most particularly endeavor to consolidate them through prevention and negotiation. Our continent 36 million African migrants who constitute 40% of the displaced persons in the world. Beyond the problems that the loss of members of the family from the exiled person, the logistic consequences, and also challenges in terms of security. We know indeed that if human distress and despair, which constitute one of the grounds to support as much as possible the efforts that have been undertaken by the Peace and Security Council for the conflicts, and also the support of peace-keeping forces. And here I would like to salute my brother Abiy for the efforts that he has made, and this is a good example for us. I would like also to contribute and see to it that the African Union be a committed player in the service of peace, because multilateralism also rests on the principle of equity. I will also be the spokesperson of more than 1 billion Africans in order to work without respite in favor of the right of our continent to sit permanently in the United Nations Security Council. And I would like to reassure you, Prime Minister of Palestine, that the problem of Palestine and Israel will be our priority in order for these two states to live in peace side by side, and as Jerusalem, the capital of Palestine. We must also endeavor with more energy to the climate change questions, so that although Africa is only responsible about 3% of gas emissions, climate change affects very hard the life of our continent. It prints its mark on a number of conflicts related to water resources. On this very important issue of climate change, the African Union should continue to make its voice heard in the community of nations, as it did during the COP27, thanks to our champion, President Macky Sall. Our continent should also prepare itself for the next COP, which will take place in the Arab United Emirates, in order for us to have a good project to put on the table and defend, and also in order to protect the African continent and the island states in Africa from, as concerns this problem of climate. I would like to seize this opportunity in order to play a deserved tribute to island states of which my country is part, because thanks to the advocacy of these states, Africa remembered also that it had 26,000 kilometers of coast and has achieved its contribution to our security, our food sovereignty. It became also aware that blue economy of Africa should generate dozens of thousands of dollars from now to 2030, which will represent a very important share of the GDP during the next UN conference, which will be dedicated to the great blue wall. Our organization will be represented by our organization, and concrete proposals in this area will be presented for the future of our people. As chairperson of the African Union, I will be at the front line of this fight. We must also recognize that if this fight is supported by the digital technology, which is unavoidable, our capacity will also be strengthened We must also see to it that we promote the self-sufficiency of our continent. It is not normal for Africa to be largely dependent on external imports, despite all the human and natural wealth that it has. Our continent could and should give itself means to be able to transform and store these products, and in order to satisfy the statistics according to which Africa is able to become the food basket of the world. Just like COVID, the crisis between Russia and Ukraine has shown the need for Africa to get out of the cycle of dependency through the promotion of agricultural production, and particularly going in the direction of the Dakar Declaration on food sovereignty and resilience. We must multiply our work, our efforts with the international community, and particularly the AIDB, which is prepared to support Africa and reinforce also the capacities of our countries in this important area, which is agriculture. Allow me here to pay a tribute to the work which has been done by our brother Adesina has always accomplished in this area. But we must also get our youth interested into agriculture, which has a great potential and which will allow our country to overcome poverty, famine, and dependency. It is then essential and busy those youth in order to prevent them from becoming hostages of extremists who threaten peace and stability in our countries through terrorist actions. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Africa is facing huge challenges. We will be in a few years 3 billion inhabitants on this continent, which did not reach 1 billion in the year 2000. It is for us to draw up the perspectives and provide solutions for Africa to become prosperous. So let's act for the prosperity and the reinforcement of women's rights, who are women who give life. Ensure the education of women, the transmission of family and cultural values, and occupy a great It is important to coordinate our actions in this direction, and particularly the harmonization of our policies on gender. Majesty, ladies and gentlemen, it will be remiss not to express and pay a tribute to our colleagues, the champions, who are championing the cause of Africa by endeavoring to achieve the mission that they have been assigned with. Please give them a round of applause. Before concluding my statement, I would like to assure you that the defense and the promotion of the interests of our continent will be the main endeavor of my mission. On your behalf, Majesty, ladies and gentlemen, I have no doubt that we will be able together to write a new page of the history of our organization. Long live Africa, long live African Union, long live international solidarity. I thank you for your kind attention.